Well, here we are at the Spring Leaders Forum, day one, end of day one. I with Jamie and Brad, and Brad, you and I worked together at Accretive, I think, right, back in the day?
We did, yeah.
Probably, man, 7 years ago, 8 years ago?
Yeah, at least.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
You guys recently went to Banner. You're at Banner here in Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little bit about how you got there, like what's happening. I'd love to hear a little more.
Sure. Banner was going through a bit of a change over the last 5 years where they were looking at how they got to where they are today and then where they wanted to go. And they started to make some leadership changes across the executive suite. So most of the executive team, other than the CFO, has turned over in the last 5 years. As part of that, they looked closely at the revenue cycle leadership as well. My predecessor had been in place for 28, 29 years and done a nice job growing the revenue cycle to what it is today, but I think that they felt that they wanted some fresh thinking in that position. So I was recruited on partially because of my background in consulting and revenue cycle outsourcing to kind of bring a fresh look and approach.
Yeah.
They were somewhat isolated and insulated. They liked to do things internally. They didn't like a lot of outside influence in their revenue cycle, which I think created some stability in the organization, but it hampered like creative thinking and outside influences that I think they really needed. So I joined in October of 2017 and worked side by side with the predecessor for several months, kind of passing the baton over, so to speak. And the first thing we did is we did a full assessment of the revenue cycle, see what's working, what's not working, what's effective, what's efficient, what's not. And ultimately what we found is that the revenue cycle was fairly effective, but it wasn't necessarily efficient, and it was also very fragile. That a lot of the processes and approach they took worked and got them where they were, but it wasn't going to scale any further from where it was.
Right.
So we had to take a look at how to correct those issues to drive the additional revenue out of the revenue cycle that was there that they weren't capturing, but also make it more scalable. So that was definitely a call to order when I came in, is make sure the revenue cycle is ready to grow. So, and what do we need to do that? Secondarily, they wanted to convert from their core host systems to Cerner Millennium, which is as you know, a single database medical record and revenue cycle tool together. So we needed to first stabilize the revenue cycle and make sure it was ready to move over to Cerner Millennium.
Yeah.
So that was our guiding principles of what we're calling right now modernization of the Banner revenue cycle, is bring some stability to it, take some of the inefficiencies and the fragile nature of the revenue cycle and get it ready to convert, but also make sure it was ready to grow. So that really took us the first 9 months, is to come up with what did we need to do, what would we apply to the revenue cycle to make those things happen, and then take the request up to the board for funding for our bridge to Millennium and our modernization effort. So that's really what we did the first 9 months.
So what was it like? I mean, it had to have been a little bit strange coming in and doing an assessment on a group. It's not like you're just consulting and be like, oh, here's the assessment, here's all the things, and I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
It's like you're the guy now. I mean, or you two are like gonna be there.
Yep.
So how was it like doing it? I mean, did that come off like weird? Did that come off hard? Like that must have been a little bit like.
Yeah, you're much more conservative in what you're
Are
going
you not
to.
gonna be like, oh, here's.
I'm definitely not going to
20% revenue.
overpromise, right?
Yeah.
So I think I was very realistic in what the opportunity was, because
Right.
I mean I've been through a lot of transformations. As you
Yeah,
call
we've
them.
been through tons of those, right?
Ton of
Yeah.
them. So, and you know, I've been on the consulting side, and you know, I've seen the outcomes, and so I think I was well positioned to know what could be done and what actually might happen.
Yeah.
So I was pretty conservative in our approach of the assessment, and then what I thought from a priority perspective we should put in place. So I think it did. You know, the background and having to stick around and eat what you sell, I think is.
I mean,
good
typically
perspective.
when you're doing these big things, I think they usually say like there's a 40% turnover in kind of leadership when you go and you change you're changing a lot, right? You're changing somewhat of a culture. You're calling it modernization. How much of the leadership team kind of turned over after you came?
Hardly any.
Really?
We've had high retention.
Yeah. We have done a lot of change. We restructured the management team. there were two deliberate people that left the revenue cycle, but that was because they were transferring that leadership to me. So the leader over revenue integrity and the leader over revenue cycle were both deliberately turned over. The rest, I can't think of hardly any that we've lost, but we were very deliberate in our approach with marketing and messaging. So we were very clear on what we were doing and what we were trying to achieve, and the what's in it for me, and what to expect, the emotional aspect of change, why this is necessary for the organization. Yeah. So we had a huge engagement with our marketing and communication team, helped us with all of that, doing baseline assessments, helping us with the messaging that goes out, orchestrating town halls, videos that are posted, a landing page for what we're trying to accomplish. We have a technology called Yammer, which is kind of like a Facebook or Instagram tool.
Like
for
Yammer? Is that what
it's called? Yammer.
That's hilarious.
It's very much like an
awesome.
Instagram tool, but it's based for corporate environment. So we post videos of what are we trying to accomplish in place of like a newsletter. So some people like to gather their information through flipping through like Instagram or Facebook. Some people like to post and be recognized and be seen, and Yammer kind of accomplishes those things. But it's part of a package of core messaging. What are we trying to accomplish? Newsletters go out. We have management need-to-know documents that go out. We have videos that are posted at the landing page, frequently asked questions, the Yammer. So it's this package of high-intensity communication to make sure everyone's aware of what's going on.
That's very interesting. So kind of an internal brand. You kind of created an internal brand.
Yeah.
We use the term modern. We use the term
modernization is that it really is branded. We worked with change management to create this modernization brand, so that when I said modernization or Brad said it or someone else, it meant the same thing to all of us. And we knew what the direction was. It was really strategic and it was really transparent. And I think that's a huge component to how we had such great engagement and be able to retain our quality leadership team. Is that
we
transparency.
literally used the word modernization because of the reaction we got from staff using the word transformation.
Yeah.
It was that transformation came across negatively as I'm going to lose my job. And modernization made them feel like they were part of change. And we literally changed the branding because of the reaction from the staff members.
And it truly, they understood that we're not changing the world. We're making an investment in you. We want to invest in our revenue cycle to make it easier for you when you come to work every day to use your brain for things that require a brain instead of just redundant behavior. And they really embraced that and got really excited and behind it.
Because you must have a ton of stakeholders.
Like
how many
Yes, we do.
CFOs in different hospitals who have their own little fiefdoms? Like how many of those are you trying to appease?
So we have 28 hospitals, 250
that's-
clinics, about 2,600 employed physicians, right? And so again, talking about that communication and how do we manage that, we did it in kind of a couple different ways, which my role is a result of one of those things. Is we have a structure at a corporate level and regional CFOs who manage a region, and then our local facilities each have a C-suite of their own.
Yeah.
And so what we did is one of my functions and roles is really providing that communication out to those regional CFOs, and then they tier that down. And then we also have local continuous improvement leaders for revenue cycle at each one of those facilities that communicate to them performance, prevention mechanisms, how are we preventing revenue leakage. And all of this came out of that modernization effort. And then another way that we're communicating to them is through a centralized revenue cycle analytics platform, where we've really opened the doors and just said, here's everything you're seeing on your finances. And I think that's really how we've been successful messaging to all those areas. Then we also do local road shows is what we call them, right? So we go out there and tell the CFOs, here's where we're at, here's everything we're doing, here's how it impacts you at your local facility. We engage with the CMOs quarterly, we engage with the CEOs quarterly, and so there is so much communication around this so that we don't set up unnecessary roadblocks just due to misunderstanding.
So is that like a full-time job? Is that your full-time job to be
you
the
know,
communicator?
It's
is that
funny,
like
right?
chief
No.
communication officer?
So yeah, I know, right? I just talk for a living, which if you ask Brad, he'd probably say, yeah, that's what I do for a living.
I'm not going to ask him.
I know, yeah, don't ask him because we don't do that.
Because I don't want to know the answer.
I know, right? So that is one of my functions. I also own the analytics strategy. I own the continuous improvement strategy, the project management, and the modernization roadmap. This comprises about 31 of those projects across the organization.
It's a huge role.
That's crazy.
Huge
Yeah.
role. But we really borrowed a page out of the outsourcing playbook here,
Yeah,
where you
right.
really have to be, market and be hyper communicative out to the markets to make sure they know what's going on. So her role is specifically developed to make sure that we met those customers, those CFOs that run the divisions, because there's an academic division. They have a different view of the world. There's academic physician group that has a different view of the world. There's Banner Medical Group, which it's community physicians. They have a different view. We have what we call Western Region, which is more rural hospitals, and then we have the Phoenix Region, which were the highly competitive community hospitals. So they're all very different revenue cycles. So obviously we're running the revenue cycle at an enterprise level, but the focus of each one of those constituents is slightly different.
Yeah, they don't care about the overall as long as they're...
They want to feel like
Tell
they're
me
getting
about
individual
some
service.
control.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's, let's just to wrap up, like what would be one set of advice for groups that are thinking about doing something similar? They got a new job, or they just merged or bought some hospitals and are trying to do a transformation.
Yeah. Well,
What would be the one piece of advice, like make sure you don't do X or do this?
I think the messaging and the communication and the transparency around what we're doing. I mean, I think we all know how to make business cases and go, hey, if I invest this amount of money, you should get
X
this return,
because,
right?
Yeah.
But it's those soft skills that I think sometimes we forget about, because those are critical, because we can sit in an office and create this strategy and deploy it, but is that reaching, Fran who's sitting there driving that claim? And I think that's one of the key components on a modernization effort of this scale that you really need to do, and then also engaging those executive leaders to help push that messaging down for those non-revenue cycle areas as well.
Yeah.
agreed. Yeah, I think that we know we're doing good work. We know why we're doing the work, but make sure everybody's bought in and stays with us through the journey is really important. So this communication strategy that we have, I think, has been key. I think we've gotten ahead, quite frankly, because we're not fighting people along the way. So when we're
It would totally distract from it, right? It would just take away so much of the energy.
We restructured the business office, and this Yammer page I'm talking about, they're posting positive items about the restructure, which is never seen anything quite like it. So definitely we don't have the back pressure that you can have when you're doing a lot of change by using this technique.
Yeah.
Well, this is great, guys. I can't wait to hear, and next year maybe we'll hear the outcome of all the 31 projects, or whenever that is, but it sounds awesome. Thanks for sharing and spending time today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
All right.